Okay, so welcome back to another video, and today's subject is gonna be conditions. So basically what we'll look through is multiple things which I got over here on this file, Python file. So we'll see more into depth indentation in Python and why is it very useful. It's necessary. Then if, elif, else conditions. They basically not conditions, but they prepare conditions and add a response if that condition is valid. Then and or statements, is, and not statements. I didn't know where to put them, so I put them together, but there's no explicit link between them. And then mathematical operators such as superior, inferior, superior or equal, inferior or equal, equal, so this is basically equal, and then different. And I'll briefly go through some other conditions that return true or false if they are executed, such as keyword.iskeyword, string.endswith, all and any, but I won't explain these as we go through them when we will work with data structures such as lists or tuples. Then isInteger and bool. So bool is just transforming a variable into a boolean. So so let's start with indentation. So basically I've wrote it over here, but indentation shows if a piece of code is linked to a block of code. So for example, at the end of a condition you add a colon and therefore show that there will be indented under it is below the colon and is indented, and this will be executed if this condition is true. So basically here we got if x that is integer. So isInteger is a method that you can execute on floating point numbers. So as we've seen before, so this is a floating point number, this is a floating point number. It doesn't work with integers, as we already know they are integers. But as for floating point numbers, we don't know if they are integers or not. And this method basically returns true if x is an integer. So with 3.0 it's the case, but 4.2 is not the case, as there's a 0.2 that doesn't make it an integer. And so if I run this, yes, it doesn't return anything as none of these conditions is true. But if I change this value to 4.0 and I run this, it prints out x and y are integers, x and y are integers. So I've made these two pieces of code to show the difference when using indentation. Basically in both cases we use indentation, but in this case I just omit the end statement to show you what it would like in terms of indentation. So here we use if x is integer, and as the statement is true, we pass that colon and go to the line where it is here indented. You can stay. Usually indentation size is a tab or 4 spaces. So you can choose which method you prefer. I personally prefer using tabs. They're easier and it's only one click, whereas spaces you have to click 4 times. And now, as this condition is true, it goes to the other line. So if y dot is integer, we'll come back to if statements and is integer method. So now, if this statement is true, it goes to the line and takes this, as there's a tab between here and here, there are 4 spaces or a tab, and it executes this as this is true. So it prints out x and y are integer. And in this case, which these two things do exactly the same thing. And in this case, if both statements are true, it prints out x and y and integers. So that's why we get the same same thing printed out twice. So that was it for the indentation. Hope you understood it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. So now we'll get to if, elif, and else conditions. So I've done a quick definition of how I would define them, and I said these link conditions to the code that will be executed after the column. So basically, if this statement is true, it's like in English. If this statement is true, so the syntax of it is if condition A, then do something. Elif, so this is the same as else if a condition B, then do something else. Or then elif will be executed if A is false. So if this condition is false, it goes back to the elif and execute this. And if this condition is true, then it will do this. So it's just a syntax example. You will only get an error if you run this. But it's basically to show you how it works. And now, finally, the else statement will be executed if neither condition A or condition B is true. So this will execute. You could also add other elif statements. So I'll show you here. So I've took an example. So if x is equal to y, then it will print x is equal to y. If x is equal to z, it will print x is equal to z. If y is equal to z, so we see if these numbers are equal. Now if I run this, it prints out x, y, and z are all different. So it went through the first condition. Okay, this was false. Went through the next one. This was also false. The next one, this was also false. So basically we'll see after. I keep saying basically, but we'll see afterward mathematical operators. So this is the Python operator to say if equal, not the same, but are equal. So I've used it over here. So here we can see 4 is different than 3 is not the same thing as 3. 6 is different than 3, and 4 is different than 6. So here it went through all these conditions, and as none of these was true, it got to the else, which executes if none of these are true, and executed it. So it prints out x, y, and z are all different. If I change this value to be 3, these two are equal, I believe so. No. Prints out x is equal to y. And now it prints out x is equal to y. So you might ask yourself, well, why doesn't it print out y is equal to z and x is equal to z? Well, the answer to this question is simply that as it encounters a statement that is true, it prints out it executes what is indented, but then it stops over here. If you want it to keep executing, you have to change the elif to ifs, and these will always execute. If I run this, I won't run it over here. We see that x is equal to y, x is equal to z, y is equal to z. All of these run, whereas if I use elif, which is basically else if, so it's continuous. It follows what will happen in the if, whereas if is independent from the other ifs. So if you understood it, then well, great. But if you have any questions, I'll be happy to respond and to help you in the comments. So yes, let's get to and then or statements. So as in English, the syntax I've written here is if condition A or condition B, then it will do something. So if either condition A B are true, or A is true, or B is true. So these three combinations will result in a true statement. So condition A or condition B is true if A is true, or B is true, or A and B is true. It's very simple to understand. Then AND statement is if condition A and condition B then do something, it only executes if A and B are true at the same time. So here's a little code. Very basic code I've written here, but just for you to understand how it works and how these conditions work. Yes, I've commented out. Now it prints out X is positive or Y is positive or both are. So as we can see here, all are positive. And here, if X and Y are positive, X and Y are positive. So I'll change a bit these values. So get rid of the Z value. I'll get the printout -1 for Y. If I run this, it only prints out X is positive or Y is positive or both are, because in this case X is positive, not Y and not both, and therefore it prints this. And in this case only Y is positive, only X is positive, and so therefore the end condition returns false, and it does not execute the line. So now we'll get to in, is, and not. So I've made a quick definition for each one of these. In is if a character is in a string. So for the types we've seen yet, because we've only seen some types. We've seen string, integer, floating, boolean, I believe so. And we'll see other types later on. And in general, it is true, it returns true. So in returns true if an object is in an iterable. So we'll see that lists, tuples, strings are iterables. So here, there's an example for the strings. I could show you an example for the lists. So for example, so here basically it's a list of 2 elements, 1 and 2. And if I print if 1 in L, so that was it for the list, but you'll understand when we get to these. So if I run this, so here, first of all, it execute this. So the string I've used is hello, basic string. Print H in string, so this is a condition. So it returns true as the letter H is in the string. So you can see here, H is in the string. Then A is in the string, it's false as there's no A in the string. And hell in the string, it returns true as this is in the string. And now, for this statement, it returns true. It prints out 1 is in the list. Here it's not a L, it's not a 1 but a L. And so it prints out 1 is in the list L. So that was it for the end statements. It's more useful for strings as we've seen here, and for the lists especially. Then is, for numbers, it returns true if 2 numbers are equal, and in general, it's a more complicated concept, but if 2 objects refer to the same thing in the computer's memory. So we'll do it with strings, and I'll show it to you with lists, because lists have a different way of working. So X, yes, this overwrites. I don't want that. I could have kept the X, but I don't like when there's some error messages. So if I run this, we get true and false. So X is 2, it returns true as X is equal to 2. And this is only the case for numbers. And then false as x is not 3. So I'll show you an example with lists. Let's say I have a L1 which is equal to an empty list, and L2 which is also equal to an empty list. Print L1 is L2. If I run this, it returns false. Why does that? It is because L1 and L2 are, when they are stored in the computer's memory, they are not the same. They are not stored as the same thing in the memory. But if I do L2 equals L1, it will return true, as they are now associated to the same value inside memory. L2 is associated to the same thing inside memory than L1. So you'll understand when we will study lists. That's not a concept to do with lists, but understanding lists and their way of working helps in understanding these concepts. So now the not is returns true if a condition is not true. So the syntax is here. If not condition, then do something. So for example, here I've done a very simple program. Sentence. Oh no. Sorry for that. So the sentence is hello world, and if hello is not in sentence and hello not in sentence, so basically I've tried both of these. If I do that, sometimes you'll write it without a big H. So if I run this, it will print out the same thing, hello from the computer. And so here, so it says if hello is not in the sentence, then it will print out you're not polite, as we didn't say hello. And in the other case, it will print hello from the computer. So that was it, very simple. If we change our if we do it with that, it will return us you're not polite. So basic thing just to show you how not works. Can be, in this case it was useful. And now we'll see the last concept, which you've already seen as I've used it before, but it's mathematical operators to express conditions. So the sign, they were over here. So superior, inferior, superior, equal, inferior or equal, not double equal. We've seen before that a variable's assignment is equal and not double equal. So when you want to check if a value is equal to another, then you have to use double equal, not equal, as equal assigns a value to a variable, and here different. So different is do not forget to put the exclamation mark before the equal sign. So here we have 4 values, A, B, C, and D, which we associate the values 0, 1, 1, and 2.1. You can do that sometimes instead of doing A equals 0, B equals 1. You can just say, you can put 4 values inside of each of these and it will work. And it's way more aesthetical. So now, I've used these basic operators, but I believe you understand what it does here. So if B equals C, so if B and C have the same value, then print B and C are equal. If A is different than C, print A is not equal to C. If D is superior to 0, print D is positive. So I could use all of these operators, but I believe you clearly understand how it works. If I run this, prints B and C are equal, A is not equal to C, and D is positive. And it runs all of these as I haven't used elif statements. They all independent, but if I use elif statements, it will only print out b and c are equal. For this, b and c are equal, as you can see here. So that was it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. I often leave some additional information in the comments of my video. So if you haven't seen them in the first video, I recommend going and checking them. Our next video will be about iteration, which is one of the main power of the computer in comparison to human. I would say in why a computer can be very, very useful. Instead of thinking by ourselves, we can let a computer help us in solving problems. So that was it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll respond to them. Hope you liked the video, and see you in another video. Bye.